Oh, yes. Okay. Also, His Highness, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, he is the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, and he has a vision, and it was about 2 years ago when he said that water is more vital than oil. It's true, and but it's a so you see, such announcements are made every 3 months. When you go through the streets, everybody reminds you to save water, but this is not in the tap. Or I don't want to continue in Arabic, but this is in the Quran, and even in the Quran, Muhammad already said, save water, be careful with the water, protect the water, and because water is a treasure for you. But when we have the arid areas, and essentially when I came 3 years ago to this place, I had my own expectations here on the left-hand side, and then I found reality. So in the beginning, I came there and expected that the water resources are very limited. It's true, but they are enormous due to desalination. The water consumption should be low, but what I realized, it is enormous. We have more than 1 cubic meter per capita a day. In Germany, we have 80 liters per capita a day, and I don't know in Spain, let's say 180, so you have to reduce it. But it's even good, always good. And the water price, I expect, must be high. No, it's 0 for the Emiratis, and as an expat, I have to pay 13 or eurocent per cubic meter. And the water protection, I expected it is high. It's low. Nothing is protected. And wasting water should be low, but it is high because you have a loss in the system, in the distribution system, of more than 50% due to corrosion. So there are a lot of challenges. Now, and the water demand is very high because we have increasing residential areas and industrial development, and also the crude oil recovery needs water. Nobody thinks that oil needs water, but for the recovery of 1 liter of crude oil, you need 7 to 10 liters of water. This also has to be considered. Water resources in the Gulf, what do we have? We have groundwater, and from the groundwater, the water abstraction is 20 times higher than the natural recharge. Then you have reservoirs for stormwater harvesting. This is normally done for, they don't use this water for water supplies, they use it for groundwater recharge. And you have the big oceans which are surrounding there, and 95% of the water supply in the UAE is based on desalination, but this is data which are valid for the whole GCC, the Gulf Country Conservation area. And water resources, okay, we have the groundwater, we have the oceans. Reservoirs are not treated, as I mentioned. So we have treatment of the groundwater, have treatment of the oceans. You have the water supply, and after water supply you have sewage. And a lot of sewage is discharged under non-controlled conditions and non-treated to the desert or to the sea. Then you have sewage treatment, and you have the treated sewage, and then what is the fate of this treatment, of this treated sewage, which I come to discuss a little bit later. Then we have a groundwater dilemma in those areas, also in the whole Gulf area. On the one side, we have groundwater levels which are sinking due to overexploitation and also due to sealing of the surface. On the other side, we have rising groundwater levels due to the leaking of the pipes, due to irrigation and wastewater release. And therefore, we need normally a closed loop, but this is not the case in this country. We should have a closed loop. We could do it because we have a lot of sand. We could use the soil aquifer treatment process and by artificial groundwater recharge. They start to think about it, but it is not put to reality so far. And you can use the subsurface as a reactor based on natural attenuation, which is done in several countries of the world. For example, when you go to the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, you have the dune infiltrations. They use the sand of the North Sea, which is located there, and so they just put the River Rhine water on it, and it's cleaned, it's purified. They could do the same. But we are looking to do some research in this field. Seawater intrusion, it is caused by sealing of the surface and by groundwater abstraction for the irrigation of the coastal areas. And when you look at the cities, for example, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, in the 1960s they had 2,000 inhabitants, and now they have more than 1 million inhabitants. When you look around, everything is sealed. You have the skyscrapers, Burj Khalifa, Ferrari City, and whatever. And the problem is that you have the shrinking groundwater because you don't have any natural groundwater recharge. And therefore, you also might have problems with the buildings because the construction you might have cracks in the constructions, in the buildings. Now, what are the facts? You have high salinity. When you go to the Gulf, they have already double the salinity of the other oceans. But this is not due to the treatment here, because this is more or less, you have the Strait of Hormuz, and which prevents the exchange with the oceans. And the brine disposal is also put to the sea, so you destroy all the ecological, the biosphere in the sea. What are the challenges? We need an improvement of the desalination technologies. They are evaporating our reverse osmosis, and they need a solution for the brine disposal. It could be better to put the brine in the desert. It's better than putting it in the sea. And it needs protection from pollution. This is also not done in a way as we could expect it. For example, if you have a pollution by crude oil, you might have problems with the reverse osmosis. Then coming to the groundwater, as I mentioned already, you have the surfacing groundwater, and I have a picture here from the desert. This is the desert, and you have increasing groundwater levels, and they also add some sewage. And what you see is our fishermen, because they put tilapia fish in this lake, and the Indians are going around and fishing, catching the fish there. So it is impossible when you go to a desert and see the dunes, and then in between the dunes you have lakes. Then we have groundwater depletion on the other side. We have the seawater intrusion, and we have the pollution. Then we have our challenges are environmental sound groundwater management, and as I mentioned already, a closed loop system could be a good solution for this. So now I pushed the wrong button, sorry. So about the seawater intrusion, I also have an example here. You have the Hachar Mountains, which have an elevation of 2,000, 2,500 meters, which are close to the Indian Ocean. And you have a lot of water there, and rainfall, precipitation is high. And therefore, you have a lot of water. And you see here that the groundwater level is high and goes to the sea. And when you go to the Batina Plain, you have a lot of agriculture. But the problem is that they exaggerate and they take too much groundwater, and therefore the groundwater level is shrinking, and then you have the seawater intrusion. And the result is, and we have here a picture, and when you look at the salinity, you see a lot of the area cannot be any more used for agriculture. And the palm trees, the date palm trees, are dying. And we have the falling groundwater levels. You cannot read it very well, sorry for that. But there is no problem awareness, and there is no water policy working in this field. And therefore, the farmers do what they can do, and they take the water and for growing bananas, but on the other side, they destroy the agriculture system. And another problem, if they cannot have any more agriculture, they are supported by the government, and therefore it doesn't matter if they die. And you have here, for example, high irrigation. You here on the left-hand side, this is food for the camels, and here you have the date palm trees and also grass in between. But the result is you see dying palm trees, and this area cannot be used anymore. And you have a loss of the agro-ecosystem and economic and social problems, because people cannot live there, they go to the city, and this area is abandoned. Now, water treatment and supply, what are the facts? We have high quality water after the treatment, it's fine. But the water is too soft. You have corrosion, therefore you have leakage, And you have deterioration of the water quality during the distribution. Because when you have the rising groundwater levels, so you have the pipes which are leaking in the water, in the groundwater, and it's not that they are leaking from inside to outside, but also that the contaminated groundwater goes in the pipe, and therefore you cannot use it anymore for drinking water. And the high water consumption I mentioned already, and in Allein we have up to 1,500 liters per capita a day. And the challenge is you have to improve the water supply, you have to reduce the leakage, and another thing, to save water. But nobody will save water when the price of the water is zero. You have to, teaching in the schools, you can do a lot, but nobody will care about it. It must harm you, you have to pay, and then you reduce the water consumption. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. Then you come to the sewage treatment and discharge. I have to admit, we have a very high quality after the treatment of the sewage, but not all sewage is treated, as I mentioned. But we don't have removal of pharmaceuticals, we don't have removal of antibiotics, essentially from the painkillers, from the pharmaceuticals, and we have endocrine disruptors. And we also have uncontrolled discharge to the environment, and we use it for roadside irrigation. To show you a picture here, you see release of the sewage to the desert, and here you see the irrigation, the roadside irrigation. Where I live is a very green city, and they spray the sewage, and we have temperatures in the summer around 50 degrees Celsius, and therefore this is perfect for the workers because the spray is cooling down. But on the other side, you have a lot of endocrine disruptors, pain-releasing compounds, but essentially antibiotics. And therefore, you inhale a very low concentration of antibiotics, and then all these people, they got resistant against the bacteria, which is a very big problem in this country. And from this point of view, we have to start to be aware of this problem, and now we have programs in this field. So we should improve the treatment process to remove the chemicals. We need a very good system for the groundwater recharge, and we have to make more investigations on the groundwater, on the aquifer, because we don't have enough data, and we have to use this water for irrigation for agriculture. Normally agriculture takes groundwater, and then we have on this side you have groundwater depletion, where you have the irrigation from groundwater. On the other side you have the surfacing groundwater. And therefore, this could be a good opportunity to reduce the groundwater level. Then coming to the waste. What are the facts? We have a waste management, but which is very, very weak. We don't have much recycling. We have some model sites where you can see it, it's fine. Then we have also uncontrolled dumping sites in the desert. And I think I have also an example from here. This is the waste collection in the compound where I live, in Allein. So there is no separation. Everything is dumped in the same place, and then you put it in the desert. And the problem is that desert life will be affected from this, because the camels, they eat the plastic, and the plastic cannot be digested, and every second camel is dying from plastic in the stomach. You find stomachs, just the form of the stomach, from plastic when you go to the desert. This is also a big problem in this country. And what are the challenges? Recycling, which is not done. There is, for example, nobody drinks the drinking water coming from the tap. You have bottled waters, and from this point of view, you have a lot of bottled of the plastic just thrown away. We use also some, so we need, for example, also when we have the industrial production, we should have cleaner production to integrate already environmental protection into production. And we have to reduce the amount of waste per ton so far. When you have the dumping sites, and sometimes it doesn't rain much in the desert, but when it rains, you have a flooding, flash floods. And so all the waste is distributed within the desert. What are the conclusions now? So we should have an environmental sound water use, and this must have highest priority, essentially in the arid area. Everybody is aware of this, but nobody cares about it. And integrated water resources management is a predominant requirement for sustainability in the water sector. This is also something which has to be not only by speech from the ministers or something like that, it has to be put in reality. Research in the elimination of the emerging pollutants during the sewage treatment is required, and secondary sewage treatment by subsurface aquifer treatment and artificial groundwater recharge could be an opportunity to recharge the aquifers in a sustainable way. And the data based on the groundwater is still weak. We are starting now to get a survey on the data, but it takes time, it needs years. And this is the problem, pollution is still ignored. You have the big cities, you have Abu Dhabi, you have Dubai, but you don't find the waste there, because it's collected and brought to the desert. And so you should be aware of the waste, but this is not the case. And I have a kind of a human survival index. This should be essentially brought in mind in these countries. And without oxygen, you can survive some minutes. Without water, you can survive, let's say, 2 or 3 days. Without food, weeks. Without money, months. And without computer, internet, and mobile phone, decades. And this should be put in our mind, essentially in the arid area, that water must have the highest priority for protection, use, and for the consumption. So, thank you very much for your attention, and we'll be happy to